The Monday, June 30th, 2025 meeting of the Marquette City Commission is now called to order at 6 p.m. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, may I have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Gottlieb?
Here.
Commissioner Larson?
Here.
Commissioner Mayer?
Here.
Commissioner Ottaway? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Schlegel?
Here.
And Mayor Hanley.
Here. Commissioners, we have an agenda in front of us. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Gottlieb? Do we have a second? Commissioner Larson?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. I have a few announcements this evening. The city would like me to remind everyone that we do have street closures for the 4th of July for the parade, beginning at 11 a.m. on Friday, July 4th. Washington Street from McClellan to 3rd Street and 3rd Street from Washington to Baraga Avenue will be closed to traffic for the 4th of July parade. The parade is scheduled to start at 2 p.m. and the streets will reopen as soon as the parade is over. McClellan Avenue from Baraga and Ridge to Baraga Avenue west of McClellan will be closed for parade staging starting at 10:30. These will also open as soon as the parade has passed. And the other slightly less fun reminder is that summer tax bills totaling approximately $44.7 million will be mailed to Marquette City property owners on June 30th. The due date for the city summer taxes is September 14th, 2025. Tax collection begins on July 1st and payments are accepted without interest through September 14th. You can pay at the city treasurer's office or online at marquettemi.gov. Interest of 1% is added to the summer tax bill on September 15th and on the 15th of every following month. And then other than that, I did want to mention the upcoming events that we have in the city for the 4th of July this week, starting with Freedom Food Fest, which will be July 3rd and 4th at Lower Harbor. We also have the fireworks show on July 3rd in the evening. The rain date would be July 4th, but from what I'm looking at the weather, it looks like we're probably pretty good for that. And then on July 4th, we have the laser light show downtown as well. The parade, of course, is 2 p.m. on July 4th. And I just want to remind everyone to take a little extra caution with all of the extra pedestrian traffic we are bound to have for the rest of the week. Now that is all the announcements that I have, and it brings us to boards and committees. We have 2 appointments today. Commissioners, do I have a motion on the appointments? Commissioner Larson?
I move that we appoint Susan Tollefson to the Local Officers Compensation Commission for an unexpired term ending 8/1/30, and Grant Combs to the Traffic Parking Advisory Committee for an unexpired term ending 5/30/27.
Do we have a second? Pro Tem Schlegel.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
Only that I appreciate these individuals for stepping up and serving on these committees.
Same. Thank you.
Any other discussion, commissioners? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. This brings us to our first public comment session of the evening. Public comment may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please state your name and physical address when speaking, and remember that the time for commissioners to respond to your comments is at the end of the meeting. Do we have anyone for public comment this evening?
Hi, good evening, commissioners. My name's Daisy Ray. I live at 930 Jefferson. And I'm speaking today as a concerned and active member of our community. I'm asking you to take a serious look of how our city allocates our resources, particularly when it comes to addressing homelessness, mental health, and recovery. It's heartbreaking and frustrating to see our tax dollars, my tax dollars, being used to criminalize poverty. Ticketing or punishing people who are homeless and have addiction issues has nothing to do with our situation. In fact, it may even make things worse. We need compassion, not citations. What WOKES is affordable housing options, expanding mental health services, and well-supported recovery programs. These investments that support stability, dignity, and long-term solutions, not just Band-Aids. Let's work together to build a city that treats all residents with care and respect. Thank you.
Do I have anyone else for public comment this evening?
I'm so tempted to give my name as Donald Duck just to see you all grimace, but I'm being very serious tonight. Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic Street. We have a week coming up in which every aspect of living in Marquette will be accentuated, the positive and the negative. The positive will be thousands of people will come here for partying. The food fest, the fireworks, the games, the playing, the having a good time. The negative of that will be that our town is not now, nor has it ever been designed for that many people at one time. And I was out and about last year for the 4th, and I had used a public parking spot near the American Legion, which meant I'm sorry, I can't even park illegally, okay? However, at the end of the parade, I could not get my vehicle out for about 45 minutes because after I had parked legally, a number of different people had parked illegally, blocking me in. And I don't have any solution for our police department because I know their number one goal for Friday is not to make the national news with 2 lost in storm. And I'm not being funny because they just lost 2 people up in the Keweenaw. But I am asking that the police make some sort of a plan to get rid of the vehicles that are blocking in other vehicles. Because fortunately, I didn't have to be someplace, but there were some people who were quite distressed because, and I mentioned they're around the American Legion because that's where I parked, and there's a lot of people who park up there. So that's number one. Number two, walked around the island last week, Wednesday. City manager, please address when those steps are going to get fixed, because I checked and they weren't. My friend and I were going clockwise up the hill, and we almost got wiped out by 3 young people, don't know their genders because they were going too fast, on e-bikes. And I mean, going down that hill and on a regular bike is tough, but these things were, and I couldn't tell you the speed because I was dodging into the ditch, but the one in front was even going faster than the 2 behind, and one male voice yelled out, "Sorry about him." And later on, my friend and I ran into the park patrol who said they had been receiving complaints, but because it was Wednesday night and they couldn't drive their vehicles, they were kind of stuck. So one of the major issues is I don't think we ever contemplated a speed limit for bicycles on the island, and that needs to be specified as well, because now they can just go. And the third thing is, and I'm not going to show this to anyone because I want us all to be able to eat our suppers tonight, but there are videos on the YouTube that show what's left of people's hands after the 4th of July. In fact, some orthopedic surgeon put up just the x-rays, so you don't even see what's left. So to all of you who are contemplating fireworks, please don't, because somebody is going to lose a finger that they don't have to lose. And I will be medicating my dog for about 48 hours because there's nothing she can do to cope. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else for public comment? Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, public comment is now closed for this portion of the session, which brings us to our presentations. We have 2 presentations tonight. The first is a certificate of appreciation for Eric Papour for the Bike, Rodeo, and Safety Fair Coordinator by Dennis Stakowitz. Thank you, Dennis.
Come on up, Eric. Eric is in our community development office, and this certificate doesn't belie everything that he had to do to set up that bike rodeo. That bike rodeo was amazing. It was a monumental task. Some may not know, but behind the scenes, Eric did a lot more than just coordinate a place for the event. He went out and solicited both monetary donations and equipment donations, which includes the 100+ helmets. And I remember the 100+ number because we had a little panic towards the end there. Monetary solicitations, T-shirts was from Upertees, right? Loyalties. He went out and did all of this stuff to put that together. You guys know I'm long-winded. I could stand up here and talk a lot about what Eric did there. But, you know, more importantly, I think with this certificate, if I could have Liz and Madeline come up also. Because a lot of people may not also know this, but Eric's wife, Liz, and Madeline were also instrumental in doing this. All of the little cars and stuff that you saw, those were actually hand fabricated, hand painted by Eric and his family. They helped put that together. And they also helped with significantly with putting it up and tearing it down at the end. And I could go there was something that I hope the city commission was sent out so you understand the depth of what went into that. I'm not going to stand here and read it because it's 2 pages and I'm long-winded enough, but this right here is the embodiment of community, right? Giving back to your community. It wasn't just a job for him. It was giving back to his community. And for that, I genuinely thank you and your family for doing that. Job well done.
I don't have much to say. Thank you, Dennis, for the kind words. Thank you to my family and a lot of people in this room who also helped. You guys all made it all awesome. We'll probably do it again. And if you ever want to sign up to help, I'll take help. Thank you.
Commissioners, do we have any comments? Commissioner Davis?
Wow, Eric. Before Dennis asked your family to stand up, I was going to acknowledge them because I know when one person in a family decides to do something significant for the community, it kind of bleeds into family members and they get involved too. So thank you, all 3 of you. And what an awesome event. Thank you so much.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Ottaway?
Yeah, Eric, thank you for putting that on. I was lucky enough to attend the event with my youngest son, and I will say that he was just amazed at what was going on, but I was too. Seeing how that all came together, especially in a community that is so just influenced by bikes, right? Seeing how many kids were impacted by that with the helmets and everything. You should sleep good tonight, just knowing that the city of Marquette really appreciates what you did. It's a huge impact on our community. So thank you. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? All right, I just want to thank you. I didn't get to attend the event because I was out of town, but I had a lot of friends who had their kids there and they loved every bit of it. And one of them even won the bike, so they were very thrilled. And they made a very big Facebook post about how excited they were about it. But thank you again so much for everything that you do for us and for everything you did in that event. All right, this brings us to our second, and I don't want to say more boring presentation of the evening because I'm sure it's going to be wonderful, but the Police and Fire Pension Board by Chair Mike Archikowski.
Thank you for having me. I'm Mike Archikowski. I'm a detective with the Marquette City Police Department. I'm the chairperson for the City of Marquette Police and Firefighter Pension Fund. Commissioners, and we probably remember that this is a pension system that was voted on by the citizens of Marquette back in 1965 to give the policemen and the firefighters an Act 345 retirement system, and for the benefit of us after we retire from our jobs and for our families. This system is funded through some member contribution. It's also funded through the City of Marquette and your contributions and that of the taxpayers. On the board, part of our job of being on the board is to keep the fund going, to monitor the investment activity, monitor the actuarial company, and everything that goes into maintaining that fund, that retirement system for all the retired police and firefighters. And to give those police and firefighters who are currently working something to look forward to after their retirement. So we on the board do our due diligence to monitor the advisors that are investing our contributions. I'm joined on the board right now currently by Ken Lamar. He's a firefighter. He's been on the board since 2019. I've been on the board since 2016. I've been the chairperson since about 2019. I'm also joined by Tara Barman. She's our city liaison. She knows a lot about numbers and keeps us in line, which otherwise probably wouldn't happen. We currently have 2 vacant spots on the board. These are spots that should be filled by just community members that want to participate in city government and help oversee the pension system. But we've had vacancies now, both have been vacant for about a year. I'm trying to get more members to join up on the board and help us run the pension system. The pension system board meets every 4th Tuesday of the month. In the past 12 months, we've had 10 meetings. 2 meetings were canceled due to a lack of a quorum. There weren't any unexcused absences by our members on the board. The pension system, we have about 146 members currently. That's 59 that are contributing and 85 that are drawing from the pension, and 2 are deferred. Currently, we have 44, just about 47 million in funds. The fund is currently 79% funded, and we like to see it 80% funded. That would be the ideal number. We're just shy of that currently, but hopefully we can get there soon. We were 82% funded back in 2021, and that again is one of our goals, to fund this a little bit better. We changed to our current investors back in 2013, before I was around for this. But since then, we've had a 7% growth in our funds. In 2018, the pension board, we wanted to see if we could do better, so we put requests for proposals out there for other investors to come on and try to produce better investments. But after the analysis, we decided to stick with our current investors, as well as Fargo Advisors. Another accomplishment we did is this past year we did the 13th check. That's basically a cost of living adjustment for people that are on a pension system. So when we have an abundance of investment revenue, we reinvest half and we take half and give that back out to our members who are retired, and let that be kind of a 13th check or a cost of living adjustment. So that ends up being about $603 on average per person. Our retirees don't collect until they've been outside of employment for 5 years. After 5 years, they are eligible for this cost of living adjustment in the 13th check. And every year we send out the summary annual report just to update our members on things like the assumed rate of investment return, to let them know how much we're funded, to provide the actuarial assumptions that are being used, just so our members know that we're still there and we're still working for them. We recently rolled out a internet portal so that the retirees can now go online and update their information or check the status of their fund, as opposed to having to run all these things through human resources at City of Marquette. Some issues, and these are issues that have been going on since I joined up with the board, but trying to get to that 80% funded figure. We're still trying to get there and to stay there. We still have those 2 vacancies to fill on the board, and we're trying to come up with strategies to address, we have 85 people drawn from the pension. We have 59 putting into it. That's kind of a difficult place to be in, but it is kind of the nature of the beast. We cannot just arbitrarily reduce the 85 figure because people are living longer and doing better. So we're just trying to fill as many work positions here at the city as we can to get those paying members.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? All right, I don't see any. Thank you again for coming in and letting us know. And it's good to see that we're sitting right around 80%. I know we're not quite there, but it's still nice that we're as close as we are.
Thank you for having me, and for the citizens of Marquette for supporting us. We do appreciate it. The members do appreciate it. Sorry it was boring.
It wasn't boring. It's just so many numbers. Thank you. All right, this brings us to public hearings. We have 3 of them tonight. The first is the abatement of a dangerous structure at 308 South 5th Street. City Clerk, can you please read the background?
Thank you, Mayor. Over the past several years, the condition of an outbuilding located at 308 South 5th Street has significantly deteriorated, which has led city staff to take enforcement action as allowed under city code. Staff have attempted to resolve the issue with the owner, which has led to issuing numerous warnings and citations. These citations went unpaid for several years until the Marquette County District Court issued a show cause order for non-payment of the citations last summer. In the months since then, city staff has continued to make efforts to get the owner to repair or remove the structure, which is located near the property line and is a danger to both the owner's home and the neighboring property. Following a recent structural analysis, it was deemed a dangerous structure as outlined in City Code Section 22-20, Dangerous Structures. During the structural analysis, it was determined that the structure was more dangerous than appeared from prior review of the exterior of the structure. Staff has notified the owner multiple times across several years, and to date, the owner has made no attempt to address the problems. Based on this, city staff determined the best course of action is a formal condemnation process, including a recommendation to demolish the structure. The City Commission took action to schedule this public hearing at the June 9th, 2025 regular meeting, and the property owner has been notified of this hearing in accordance with City Code. Fiscal effect. The estimated cost of a possible abatement action is $10,000, and the cost would be charged to the property owner through a lien placed on the property if necessary. Recommendation: designate the outbuilding located at 308 South 5th Street as a public nuisance under Section 22-20B of the Marquette City Code and condemn the structure. Further, direct staff to notify the property owner that if the removal of the structure does not commence within 14 days and is not completed within 60 days, the city will carry out abatement of the structure with the cost charged against the premises and the owner. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. This opens the public hearing for this. Members of the public wishing to make a comment on this public hearing have 3 minutes to do so. Please state your name and physical address when approaching the commission. Do we have anyone wishing to speak for this public hearing?
Margaret Brom, 404 East Magnetic Street. I feel bad for anybody who has an issue with property and they can't deal with it themselves. However, I've, believe it or not, studied the city procedure for notifying people that there's a problem. And I believe the city clerk mentioned that you've been notifying this particular landowner for years, as opposed to the idea is that you get a notice on the 1st of the month and you have to have everything done by the 15th and it's the first you've heard of it. So as hard as it is for me to support this draconian action, I do support it. I think it is the responsibility of the city to be careful. We have a lot of young people and also a lot of wildlife that can get stuck in that structure. Also, we have a fire department that could end up having to come out to deal with it because structures that are struggling generally attract things that can burn. So despite the fact that, as I said, it is a draconian measure, I support it 100% that the city issue this and try to keep the city as safe as humanly possible. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else for public comment? Okay, seeing none, this public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Davis.
I move that we designate the outbuilding located at 308 South Fifth Street as a public nuisance under Section 22-20B of the Marquette City Code and condemn the structure. Further, direct staff to notify the property owner that if the removal of the structure does not commence within 14 days and is not completed within 60 days, the city will carry out the abatement of the structure with the cost charged against the premises and the owner.
Do we have a second? Commissioner Ottaway?
Second.
Any discussion?
This is not something that the city does lightly, and it's a difficult thing to do because we're talking about someone's personal property, but if any of you other than Margaret bothered to read the extensive documentation and notification, and which went on for years, it is the correct thing to do, and this is where we as a commission are responsible for some of the safety of the public, and this falls under that kind of jurisdiction. So I highly support this.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'll echo my good friend, Commissioner Davis. There's not a commissioner up here that likes to be the bearer of bad news when it comes to this. I don't think any of us want to interfere in other people's property, but there is a safety concern here. This particular structure, if anyone has seen it, is not a safe structure. In fact, if you look at the court documents, they go back, I believe, all the way to 2021, just the court docs themselves. This has been an ongoing process where this person has had plenty of notice and opportunity to fix the problem or find some sort of remedy with the city, and unfortunately has been unable to do so. The city holds a responsibility to protect all of its citizens, including the neighbor of that property, so 100% I'm on board to support this.
Any other commissioners?
Question for staff. Going through this packet, I mean, there is an incredible amount of time dedicated to this structure, and I'm on board with what everybody else is saying as far as this is a safety issue, plain and simple. Part of my, I guess, one of my side questions, I guess, would be, is there any recouping of staff hours and the amount of money that went into taking care of such a trivial piece of our community, I guess. I'm just looking at I wish I could go back and count how many pages were part of the warning notice and things all that went through that whole process, but it is extensive. So is there any kind of recourse in that respect, or are we just going to be responsible for or hold them responsible for tearing down the property or the piece of property?
So there is no ability to recoup that effort that is done as in fact, Mr. Popur's daily staff duties that he's paid by the city to do, but there is no recourse for getting that time back. There's no fee for that. It's purely the reimbursement of well, there's two things. One is reimbursement for the structural analysis that was performed because we paid somebody else to do that. That was not done by city staff. We can recoup those funds because that's out-of-pocket costs. But then for the tear down of the building, if the city has to do that, there is reimbursement for that. The next step, once that happens, is that if that's not paid, you may see that come back next year as a single lot special assessment on the property taxes next summer.
Thank you. The process to get to where we are today is incredibly deep and long and arduous. And I want to thank staff for being able to tolerate the process, but at the same time, I would encourage people in the community, number one, respect your neighbors, respect your own property, and don't let things get to this point. It's the first time I've seen this come across as a commissioner, and I'm just really quite surprised and disappointed that we're having to go through this process right now. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more discussion, all in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. This brings us to our second public hearing of the night, Ordinance 25-07, the Land Development Code Amendments. City Clerk, could you please read the background?
Thank you, Mayor. On May 20th, 2025, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing for the consideration of a comprehensive set of amendments to the Land Development Code that had been the subject of several months of work and refinement prior to this meeting. After considering the proposed amendments and conducting the public hearing, the Planning Commission approved the following motion. It was moved by Kay Clegg, seconded by M. Rayner, and carried 7-0 that after review of the draft Land Development Code LDC amendments presented as case 01-ZOA-05-2025, and after conducting a public hearing and careful consideration of the contents of the draft LDC amendments, the Planning Commission finds that the draft LDC amendments are consistent with the recommendations, goals, and policy objectives of the Community Master Plan, comply with Section 54.1405 of the Land Development Code, and therefore are justified and appropriate, and therefore should be approved by the City Commission as presented, represent an improvement to regulation that affects property owners in the city, and therefore are justified and appropriate, and therefore should be approved by the City Commission as presented. Per the recommendation of the Planning Commission, the amendments are being presented at tonight's public hearing as Ordinance 25-07. In the attached draft ordinance, strike-throughs indicate repealed content, while yellow highlights indicate newly added material. Tonight's public hearing was scheduled at the City Commission's regular meeting of May 27th. Fiscal effect, none. Recommendation, adopt Ordinance 25-07. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you. Before I open up the public hearing, I would like to welcome up Sarah Middlefeld to go over a little presentation about the different changes that we have to the LDC.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, and the Commission. We're excited to be up here to show you what we've been up to. It's nice to have fellow former planning commissioners on the City Commission now, because they know how much work goes on between this short slideshow that we will be presenting. So these are amendments or changes to the Land Development Code based on a lot of, again, what staff and Eric has been doing in the field. They see what works and what doesn't work with our code, and then brings feedback so that we can adapt things accordingly. So again, thank you, Eric, and thank you, Madeline, for your amazing job at the bike rodeo. She was a great help too. Just got to put a plug in for Madeline as well. All right, so this is our commission. We're a full board, a really great board, pretty diverse in terms of our backgrounds and our interests and expertise. So it's always really some rich conversations that we have. Some of the kind of big picture things I wanted to point out, and again, Dave Stensis is very instrumental in all of this in the presentation tonight. So if we have any questions, feel free to ask me as I'm going through this, and Dave and I can answer it, or we can save it to the end. So the Land Development Code, as you all know, is designed to benefit all of the property owners in the city. It's to make rules consistent so the developers know what to expect. Our amendments tonight that I'll be talking about are very comprehensive. You can see how many different articles, the different parts of the Land Development Code that we've been working on. We'll try to do like kind of the greatest hits tonight, so the really the most impactful ones. A lot of the ones that we've been focusing on are housing, right? We all know how important housing is in our community right now, so we've been really trying to figure out what we can do with the code to make it a little bit easier to add density, to add more units, but also looking at environmental factors, business needs, and dealing with some procedural issues as well. Some of it is just refining text, like we'll have people give us some feedback like this paragraph doesn't really make sense, or there's some inconsistencies, so just changing language to make it more clear, making the definitions consistent with other communities. And then again, just kind of making sure we don't have anything that's a discrepancy between different sections, that everything is consistent throughout, changing confusing text. So this has kind of been our overarching what we've been up to in the last few months here. Most of what I want to talk about today are the housing relating pieces. So again, going back to our community master plan, you're all familiar with the great work that was done with a part of the community master plan, where it identified that 51% of all dwelling types are single detached family homes. But we know there's been surveys done about housing needs in our community, and they are kind of a wider variety, right, of different housing types. So not just the single family standalone home, but looking at multifamily apartments, townhomes, duplexes, triplexes, and all of that. So we're trying to sort of honor the tradition of the single family home in our community, but also open it up to other types of housing options within the code. So if you'll remember, from 2024, one of the last sets of amendments we made to the Land Development Code, we did approve duplexes as a permitted use in the medium density residential area and in the low density residential area, and triplexes as approved uses, permitted uses in medium density and as a special land use in the low density. So if it's a special land use, just for those of you who maybe aren't as familiar with the Planning Commission duties, if it's a special land use, that means it's possibly allowed, but there's a much more, there's a public hearing and it's sort of a longer process to get that special land use permit. But if it is a permitted use, then property owners can go ahead and develop duplexes in a medium density or low density district, and triplexes now in a medium density, possibly in a low density residential area, but by special land use only. So this is something that was already approved, but just wanted to kind of remind you in case people are asking. This was a pretty big change in terms of increasing density within the city. Quadplexes, so 4 units, that's a special land use permit also within the medium density residential and low density residential districts. So again, the goal is to add more different types of housing and increase density within most of the different residential districts within our community. Okay, so for what we've been working on most recently, this round of amendments that we're asking you to vote on tonight, we allowed for an increased height of single-family homes up to quadplexes and multifamily buildings with an increase in yard setbacks. So it's like, you know, compared to a traditional home, it increases that setback just a little bit if it's going to have increased height. So that is a way that you're not going to get a really, really tall building like cramped right up next to some existing structure. So that allows for a little bit, you know, you could fit an extra story depending on sort of the roof structure and design, extra story over current limits. And accessory dwelling units, some of you actually worked on the original ADU language in our land development code. So we've eased the restrictions for detached accessory dwelling units to be allowed in rear yards. We clarified some of the language around what is considered attached versus an interior accessory dwelling unit. So again, if you're not familiar with what an accessory dwelling unit is, it's we kind of call them like granny flats, or, you know, it's like maybe your kid is home living with you again and they haven't been able to buy a home themselves. Maybe they have like their own little unit. So it's, again, it's supposed to be kind of making more different types of housing options available. We changed some language around the parking space, making it just one parking requirement, parking space. And we kind of changed the succession of ownership requirements a little bit as well. So again, trying to make it easier for people to do these kinds of things. There has been a little bit more interest in developing ADUs in the last year or so. But we're excited about having new types of housing options in the city. Other housing related amendments that are in this package for you tonight, reducing some setbacks in each residential zoning district, and also trying to, in the green belts or the buffers between different zoning districts, between residential areas and non-residential areas, making there be kind of reduced sort of buffers, I guess, between those areas to, again, allow for more development. And this will allow for more buildable area with also, but allowing, you know, still serving that stormwater and infiltration functions as well, but trying to, again, accommodate more development while also having that sort of stormwater function as well. All right, there's a bunch of them here, so if I'm gonna go through it, but if you have questions, please let us know. People came to a few meetings around storage, so we changed some of the language around commercial storage services, clarified definitions for self-storage. There's another section on the natural resource extraction and processing. This is pretty much dealing with like the sand over at the Marquette Board of Light and Power. Clarifying the definition and standards tied to environmental performance requirements, and trying to kind of make consistent what's happening in the city with state laws that preempt local zoning. And yeah, clarifying language around heavy equipment sales, rentals, displays, again, the accessory dwelling units that I just mentioned, some minor revisions around that. This is, if you are familiar with the code, this kind of format looks really familiar, where here's the zoning district at the top, industrial manufacturing district, and then here's what's permitted, what a landowner can just do by right. And then there's the special land uses, which require the public hearing and a little bit more process. And so we updated land use categories for storage units. Again, that was because a resident was interested in kind of increasing other opportunities for storage. So we changed some of the uses there and tried to clarify for specific zoning districts, like what's permitted and what is a special land use. All right, the fences, this is again where Eric's help was really helpful, really instrumental, because fences, as those of you know, who've been on the planning commission, fences are a big issue in our community. We hear a lot about fences. So we actually, some of the images I'll show you, we had some new graphics that I think really help clarify some of the issues around where fencing can go in backyards and things like that. So maybe I'll talk more about that when we get to that image. Also, again, the excavation and mining activities, we added some environmental performance standards on that. Bicycle parking requirements to all new development where there's space and it allows. We're seeing a lot more e-bikes and cycling in the city, so just kind of making that part of all new development. And developers are doing this anyway, so we're just kind of putting it in the code. Landscape design, plant materials. We reduced the size of tree saplings and the number of shrubs required. We updated the list of prohibited and recommended species, really trying to emphasize native species that grow in this area and do well. And again, kind of more procedural types issues. We worked on making sure that people need to be sort of in good standing with the city. If you have unpaid code violations, you're not going to be eligible for permits. So that was something that we worked on. This is just, I'm not going to run through it, but these are just some new things where we just realized the definition kind of need to get updated to be consistent with how it's being defined in other codes and elsewhere. And yeah, some new images, which I guess I won't really get into the weeds, but the one in the top right corner there is a really helpful graphic that shows like where fences can be allowed in the front yard, depending on the sort of context that those fences are being developed. I'm not going to go through it, but it makes a lot more sense if you read the code and you're trying to understand it, and then you see the image and you can kind of go exactly which part of the image represents your interest, and you can kind of visually see what was in the text. So we did some new illustrations for other parts of the code that we've updated too, just to kind of, for those people who like to understand things visually, we added those in there. All right, I just zipped through a lot, but I was trying to keep it simple. This is a lot of work, a lot of time. I mean, I got to give kudos to both Eric and Dave and Andrea. The staff are amazing. They do so much work behind the scenes, and then the planning commissioners, we can kind of critique, ask questions, and try to add our own sort of insights to it. But it really is a lot on the city staff, and they do a great job. So thank you.
So I can't have anyone ask questions at this moment.
Oh,
I have
right.
to do the public hearing first,
Sorry.
and then I can bring you back up for that, though.
Okay, perfect.
Thank
You,
you.
Mayor. Appreciate it.
All right. I am now opening the public hearing for the Land Development Code amendments. Anyone wishing to speak about these has 3 minutes per person. Please state your name and physical address when you do so. Do I have anyone for public comment? Okay. Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Gottlieb.
I move we adopt the ordinance number 25-07.
Do I have a second? Commissioner Larson?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? And if you'd like, we can bring...
Not necessary
okay,
for
perfect.
me.
Go ahead.
Can't speak for you. As a former planning commission member, I just want to say, and I'm sure several of my co-city commissioners who have sat on the planning commission will agree, that I know the work that you do on the planning commission is far more difficult than what I'm encountering here. And your attention to detail is amazing. And hats off to you, to Steve, to Dave. You guys are incredible, and I'm impressed. So thank you.
I would just like to say that, there's a lot of work that went into this, and certainly a lot of thoughtful work that goes into it, line by line, moving through this. I guess I did have one question, and it's just talking about the new increased heights, for homes, and the consideration for some of the single-family lots that are, 37.5 feet wide, much smaller, and allowing those to still to go up to 44 feet, whereas, multifamily, duplexes and triplexes, and having that same height, allowance despite the much larger requirements for the footprint of those lots. Does that kind of make sense?
I think so, but I think that's why we put the setbacks in for.
If you want to come up to the microphone so people can hear. Sorry.
Dave can also
Oh, yeah.
tag team.
Sure. I guess my comment revolves around on the smaller lot, that larger height may seem like it's a cramping that lot a little
Right.
bit more versus some of the larger lots.
But my understanding is they wouldn't be able to do it if they also don't have the setback.
Exactly, so
Right.
those smallest lots, it would not be possible to build a house that's 44 feet to the midpoint of the peak in the eaves.
Sure. And so having it as allowable just for those unique situations in which they might have that lot size.
Right, it's not gonna work for a lot of people, but for those that it can, it could add some options that currently would be a lot better than going to build a new house or going somewhere else for a house. And that idea really comes from the Northeast Atlantic area. If you've been to Boston, there's what they call pop-top houses. You see a lot of those in some communities around Boston where they pop in a third story because at some point they were allowed to, and they're very popular in some places, but in our community, there's going to be a few places where you could build that kind of height.
Yep. Thank you for that clarification. I think it certainly helps speak towards the density that we do need, and thanks for all the time you put into it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a really good topic to kind of hang on there, and I guess I'll just make a comment in regards to my experience in the construction side of things. By making these alterations and changes and exceptions, I guess, it's a lot cheaper for somebody to build up than it is to build on. And that's something that you're allowing these other, a lot of single-story homes in the city of Marquette, or, many different variations. But if you're going to try and do something with today's material costs and everything that's associated with the build, it's just cheaper to build up than it is to build onto. So I think that's very smart. And I've said this probably every year and about every time the Planning Commission comes up, but I just love the fact that, 12, 15 years ago, whatever it was when I was on the Planning Commission, that this is a continuous process that these guys do, and it's just to go through and rework all of these different aspects of our community, and they put so much attention and hard work into it, and it blows my mind that they haven't gotten to the end of it yet. I mean, you're not going to ever get to the end of it, but it is just a testament to our city staff to see all these changes over the years. So thank you for what you're doing in that respect. I was a little disappointed when I saw that there was a larger list of trees that are non-native and not allowed to be brought in and planted, until I read that list of trees, and I'm very glad that those trees are not allowed to be in here. Everything from the spiny locusts and everything else along those lines, there's a reason for pointing out those specific trees, and I don't know if you want to touch on that. Yeah.
I just want to commend our city arborist for helping with that. So this code, the land development code, really is a community process too. You've got all our volunteer planning commissioners who are eager to dig into this. You've got multiple levels of staff. I got to commend our city attorney for going over a lot of this and working with our staff at times to suss out some of the difficulties with the issues we're looking at. It's complex stuff.
Yeah, and on that one too, specifically, I want to give a shout out to my fellow Commissioner Jane Fitkin, who's one of our younger folks on the planning commission, and she did extensive research on native planting and what would work, and brought that to the commission, and we kind of workshopped it with the city staff. And
Our arborist looked it
Arborist,
over and even sent it out to somebody he knew that was more of a forester and got some opinions. So great process there.
Yeah. So thank you. I'm really pleased to see just how much cleaner it is than when I first originally got introduced to it. It's really impressive. Thanks.
I just want to thank you, Sarah, for that summary. It really makes a lot of sense after all of those pages I was trying to read. So the summary helps because you have the rationale behind it, and the commitment of the staff and the commissioners is much appreciated. I know I haven't served on the planning commission, but I've been to enough, I've read enough of those minutes, and I know that it's not an easy job, and I appreciate that.
Sarah, thank you for this. I'll echo what Commissioner Davis had to say. It was very nice to get just the recap of everything. Sitting through the amendments over the last couple of years here, and then going back to just the changing of the LDC when it was fully adopted, it is amazing to see what we have in this community when it comes to our group of planning folks with city staff and our commissioners and really past commissioners and people who sit in this room as well. We are very lucky to have the group of individuals that we have in this community putting this all together. It's just proof that this is just kind of a living, breathing document that is always being worked on. And I think we have so many people capable in place that it's only going to get better. So thank you for all the time and energy you guys put into it, because we do acknowledge that it's a lot.
Okay, I have a couple little things. The first one is, I saw that you changed the wording in the description for medium density residential. It went from saying in a form that is traditional to this, it went from in similar scale and character to in a form that is traditional to the city. Are you worried about how open to interpretation that could be with someone if someone comes towards that?
Oh, that was
because that one's
2 hours of one meeting.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, there was, as you can imagine, extensive discussion around what would stand up kind of in a legal standpoint, when you're talking about traditional environment. But
Well, one of the considerations there was with going back to 2024, allowing for the duplexes and triplexes and even quadplexes by special land use permit, that the language that is in the code now doesn't adequately capture that. And it seemed like, well, maybe we should have caught that last year, but we caught it now. So we're just kind of massaging the words a little bit, but it is important to get that right, because people do sometimes look at the intent. What's the intent of the code? And not every zoning district has an intent. So it's important to get it right.
All right. And I'm obviously with that extensive discussion, it came to it that would hold in court and couldn't be swayed and used in a different way.
well, she's smiling, so yes.
Yeah, you're confident? Okay. It's just one of those weird things, the way I read it. I was like, Okay, and then the other thing is, I know we're talking a lot about ADUs, and to me, I'm wondering when we will get to a place where we allow both the ADU and the primary residence to be rented, not have one owner occupied. I don't think it would dramatically change the character of the neighborhoods, as I don't know how many we currently have, but I don't think it's an overwhelming amount of ADUs, and I think it could open up more of a market for people who have that option right now. Is that something we're looking at? No.
We've discussed it. We've definitely discussed that, but I think the planning commission at this point in time felt like, we kind of, even though there's a lot of changes, we like to be kind of conservative and work incrementally on certain things. And so we haven't really seen a huge demand for ADUs. So I think we've been kind of waiting to see, like, how does this play out? I think we're a little worried if you open it up to like both two rentals on a property, that could really change the character of neighborhoods pretty significantly.
Yeah. It brings up the question of, would you then go ahead and allow 2 dwelling units on a property, 2 full-blown dwelling units, because that's basically what you are doing when you have 2 ADU, or an ADU and another home without any restriction on who's living in either one, becomes 2 dwelling units, and for as long as the city's had a code like this, you're only, well, I shouldn't say that, but at least since 1950, the city has not allowed 2 dwelling units on the same property, 2 separate dwelling units, unless it's a multifamily property.
But in the code that we have now, don't we already do that with ADUs? Because one of them can be just rented. It doesn't have to be family.
If I may just go back to
Oh, yeah.
this slide, I'm going to go through all of those, that Sarah had of the ADUs. Right here, in the bottom right corner, that shows all those buildings that are red. Hopefully nobody's colorblind on the commission there. All the spaces that are red next to the house, including the one in the middle on the right that's like a basement ADU. These are all the options for an ADU right now. The red being, so you have it detached up on the upper left, completely detached, and you know, there's lots of options for the way you can incorporate an ADU into your property, but some communities are actually allowing 3 ADUs. And, you know, in communities like San Diego or LA, they're allowing, like, turn your garage into an ADU, then build an ADU that's attached to that and the house, and then the house can have an ADU. It just, you know, kind of depends on where you're at with your community's need. But we're in a college town, and we've kind of been thinking for a long time that a detached ADU with no restrictions would just, it would open up a whole new venue for landlords to rent to college students in their backyards, or, you know, that might not be the best thing.
But currently, right now, the landlord could live in the house and rent the ADU to college students, correct?
Yeah.
So what is the difference if they're both being rented, is my question there.
Then you have an absentee landlord.
I mean, you don't necessarily have an absentee landlord. Landlords are landlords.
I can help clarify this a little bit in that during the last community master plan process, we extensively talked about housing, and I feel that a reason the Planning Commission really didn't consider it is because there was pretty solid sentiment by the public during that master plan process that in order for a rental like this to work, they needed to have a responsible homeowner on site. And that was kind of like as we went through that housing thing, as I remember it. So I'm probably making an assumption, but that was, you know, part of where they take their direction from. Now, in speaking, Madam Mayor, to what you're looking for, I don't think that that's something that can't be looked at or further examined. That's fair game. Anything at this point is fair game in order to solve a lot of the housing challenges that we face in Marquette. But, you know, I guess I'm kind of defending them a little bit in that the community sentiment wasn't really there based on the master plan.
Understandable. All right. Those were the only questions I had. Commissioners, I did want to thank you guys because I took the time to read through the entire LEC with all of your different changes. And all I could think the whole time is, wow, they do so much work. It is so detailed, and you caught so many different things, even the tiniest little changes and numbering. It is always wonderful to see what you bring before us. And so I thank you for all of the work and everyone that put the effort into making those changes. Commissioners, do we have any more comments? Okay, with that, I will bring it to a vote. City Clerk, could you please conduct a roll call vote?
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Gottlieb,
Yes.
Commissioner Larson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ottaway,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schlegel,
Yes.
and Mayor Hanley.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. This brings us to our last public hearing of the evening. We have the 01-PUD-03-25 West Magnetic Street, portion of PIN 0410681. City Clerk, could you please read the background?
Thank you, Mayor. Viridia Group submitted an application for preliminary PUD approval and site plan review for a proposed planned unit development that includes a mixture of townhome types, 1 unit, duplex, triplex, and 6 units, for a total of 36 units to be located at the 3 existing parking lots on the south side of West Magnetic Street between Lee Street and 4th Street on the property previously known as the MGH campus. The Planning Commission reviewed the materials at their June 3rd, 2025 meeting and passed the following motion. It was moved by S. Lowry, seconded by K. Clegg, and carried 7-0, that after review of the PUD site plan includes pattern book items dated May 5th, 2025, and the staff file review and analysis for 01-PUD-03-25, the Planning Commission, who previously established that the PUD met 7 out of 10 required objectives and the criteria to be eligible for a PUD of Section 54.323F of the Marquette City Land Development Code, and the preliminary PUD plan meets Section 54.323H of the Marquette City Land Development Code, recommends that the PUD be approved by the Marquette City Commission with the condition that an amended plan be submitted to meet staff comments, particularly for the variances requested for the final site plan review. The next step in the process is for the City Commission to hold a public hearing to consider the Planning Commission recommendation. This public hearing was scheduled at the June 9th, 2025 City Commission meeting. Fiscal effect, none. Recommendation, approve 01-PUD-03-25 as recommended by the Planning Commission and direct the City Attorney to draft the PUD agreement. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you. Okay, once again, members of the public wishing to make a comment on this public hearing have 3 minutes to do so. Please state your name and physical address when coming to the front. Do I have anyone who would like to make a comment on this public hearing?
Sarah Middlefelt, 505 Albert Street. I just want to talk a little bit about the process for this PUD because Dave and I were actually talking about, like, this was kind of the project that is why PUDs exist. And the process went really well. It was like the textbook, what you would hope from a PUD. So I really do commend the developers on they had a preliminary draft and there was a packed room. A lot of the neighbors raised some concerns about Pequot Street and the dust and traffic on and off, and the developer brought that back and they revised their plan and they came back. It was I think, a great example of a community-informed project. So I kind of wanted to just it might be in the minutes, but I kind of wanted to just tell a little bit of that backstory because it really was, I think, a really solid process on how the project's progressed thus far. So. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to comment on this public hearing? Anyone else? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Larson.
I move that we approve 01-PUD-0325 as recommended by the Planning Commission and direct the City Attorney to draft the PUD agreement.
Commissioner Pro Tem Schlegel.
I would second the motion.
Any discussion?
I think we've been waiting a long time for this to come to fruition, so I certainly support the project and the thoughtful consideration, on both the Planning Commission's part, and it's really a solid example of adaptive reuse of property, and so I support this fully moving forward.
Pro Tem Schlegel?
Yeah, I'm on board 100%, and I think, Sarah, thank you for standing up and saying what you just did, because that's the beauty of the Planning Commission. It really is a pragmatic process that when handled properly, and any community can really be a difference maker in making sure that they're dialed into what the community wants. So nicely done. Thank you.
Any other? Commissioner Gottlieb?
I went to several of the PUD meetings, including one where many people stood up and had valid concerns raised, and I praise the developer for coming back, dealing with those issues, and I think the system worked, as evidenced by the fact nobody got up tonight with concerns. I think the system worked, and again, hats off to the developer, to Sarah, to Dave, to the Planning Commission. The system worked.
Any other commissioners? Okay, seeing no more discussion. All in favor, please say yes. All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. This brings us to our consent agenda. Commissioners, do I have a motion on consent? Commissioner Ottaway?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do we have a second? Or Commissioner Mayer?
I'll second the motion, Your Honor.
Any discussion? All right, City Clerk, could you please conduct a roll call vote?
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Gottlieb,
Yes.
Commissioner Larson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ottaway,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schlegel,
Yes.
and Mayor Hanley.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. This brings us to new business. Item number 1, a proclamation in honor of David R. Boyd. City Clerk, as there is no background, could you please read the proclamation?
Oh, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas Dr. David R. Boyd was a leading voice advocating for disability rights and barrier-free design in Marquette and throughout the nation, and whereas he advocated for and helped pave the way for the Americans with Disabilities Act to be passed in 1990, and whereas he was an active member of the Marquette community, serving on numerous boards, including the Marquette County Transit Authority, the Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee, the Advisory Committee on Handicapper Concerns, the Propylon Nonprofit Housing Corporation, and the Marquette Access Group. And whereas he contributed to the education and well-being of Marquette residents through his time as an instructor at Northern Michigan University and his efforts to educate leaders, legislators, and the public on the importance of inclusive infrastructure for the entire community. And whereas he founded the Propylon Nonprofit Housing Corporation and Marquette Access Group to offer housing and support for individuals with disabilities and advocate for accessibility and infrastructure improvements on the local level. And whereas his celebration of life is taking place at Peter White Public Library on July 19th at 2 p.m. in the community room. And whereas the City Commission recognizes and commends the lasting impact of Dr. David R. Boyd's contributions to the community and encourages all residents to honor his legacy through active civic engagement and a continued commitment to inclusivity. Now, therefore, the Mayor and City Commission of the City of Marquette hereby recognize the accomplishments of Dr. David R. Boyd in Marquette, Michigan, dated this 30th day of June, 2025, and signed by Mayor Jess Hanley.
Thank you. Commissioners, do I have a motion? Pro Tem Schlegel?
I would like to make the motion to accept the proclamation as presented.
Do we have a second? Commissioner Davis?
I will second the motion.
Pro Tem Schlegel?
I've got a lot to say about David. If I could burn a half hour with you, I could do it in an hour. But David was one of these guys when I first started to cut my teeth in serving the community here on the Presque Isle Advisory Committee that really impressed me. I rolled into one of our meetings, and here he was, this gentleman with all these disability issues from a spinal cord operation that had complications. So being confined to his wheelchair, I thought, boy, here is a guy that is not letting anything stop him from doing the work of a community. And my dad had polio, and he had limited mobility, and I really I grew to really respect David for his efforts and everything that he went into, and that was just the one thing that I knew at the time. So as we served on that committee, we worked on the handicap accessible pathway out of Presque Isle. That is still kind of in place, but it could be using a bit of a freshen up out there. But it was all of these things that it was making sure that everybody could enjoy our community, regardless of your mobility. And as I learned over the years to see where he served and other capacities in the city, I just really continued to build that respect for David and his service. And his wife, who I've never met, but I hear is a lovely woman and an incredible support to David and everything that he wanted to do. But I was really pushing to see this recognition for David because he couldn't pick me out from Adam. I highly doubt he remembers me from those days, if he could. But the fact is that it's people like this in our community that encourage and make people such as myself want to get more involved and to serve and to include everybody in the process and make sure that we have inclusion for everybody, and to be able to associate it with whether it's the Transit Authority or the PIPAC and Presque Isle and the beauty that is seen there. It is just one of those. He's just one of those guys that really made Marquette a better place. And I'm very excited to see this proclamation, and I would invite everybody that had some experience with Dr. Boyd to attend the celebration of life. I unfortunately will be out of town, but I'm certainly going to include some sentiment in the service. So I encourage you all to show up, and I thank the city for taking this on, and city staff for putting it together. It truly is what makes gentlemen like Mr. Boyd are what makes communities a great place to live for everybody. So thank you.
Commissioner Davis?
Okay, Commissioner Schlegel, I can't add much more to that, but I do want to just say that it's a rare occasion when we can honor someone who has given this much to a community over this many years. And I really appreciate that the city staff took the time to put this proclamation together. And I just want to reiterate the last part of that where it says we recognize and commend the lasting impact. And there truly is a lasting impact that he has had on our community. So that's it.
Commissioner Gottlieb?
I actually knew David fairly well, and I'm sure all that knew him would agree. He was irascible, sarcastic, hilarious, highly intelligent, and could do more from his chair than most of us can do from our feet. He was an amazing man. Sadly, David could pick me out, and when he did, he gave me tasks to do that caused me a lot of grief. We have an elevator in our temple because of David, dealing with anti-Semitism in our city, which fortunately is minimal, but he was subject to some of it, and I worked with him there. It was an honor knowing him. So,
Any other commissioners? Okay. Seeing no more comments, I bring it to a vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. Up next, we have the used plow truck purchase. City Clerk, could you please read the background?
Thank you, Mayor. Motor pool staff recently had to permanently down a mainline plow truck due to excessive frame corrosion issues. The delivery time for a new plow truck is currently 12 to 15 months. In lieu of purchasing a new truck, staff recommends purchasing a used plow truck that can be made ready for plowing this upcoming winter. Motor pool staff found a used 2014 Mack Granite GU 713 at Eau Claire Mack Sales Inc. in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, for a total cost of $80,000. This purchase will ensure that an adequate plow fleet is available to maintain roads this upcoming winter. Fiscal effect: a budget adjustment will be required for this purchase. Recommendation: approve the purchase of a used 2014 Mack Granite GU 713 from Eau Claire Mack Sales Inc. of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, at a price not to exceed $80,000. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Do we have a motion? Commissioner Larson?
I move that we approve the purchase of a used 2014 Mack Granite GU 713 from Eau Claire Mack Sales, Inc. of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, at a price not to exceed $80,000.
Do we have a second? Commissioner Ottaway?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just given the state of our aging equipment, the purchase is certainly about public safety and making sure that, you know, we can have operational continuity here in the city during our winters. So certainly appreciate the vetting process by staff.
Commissioner Ottaway?
Yeah, I'm not going to say that I am excited about having to make a budget adjustment for this, but it's one of the few things in our community that I think we can all agree with. We have to have plows, especially plows that are safe, roadworthy. So it's a no-brainer. 100% on board.
Thank you. I do want to point out that the budget adjustment is coming from the motor pool fund, not our general fund. So I do want to make sure that everyone is aware that the money is set aside. We just hadn't expected to use it quite yet. Any other commissioners? Okay. I had quite a few questions about buying this plow truck, I won't lie, and I probably was slightly annoying with the amount that I asked, but the city staff did a great job of explaining. I had asked why we needed one. They sent pictures of the corroded frames on the ones that we currently had. I had asked, what is the conditions of all the vehicles we have? Because I know that we have quite a few and didn't know if we could use one of the other ones. And they explained that we need to have certain ones for certain things. I asked if there's anything that can be retrofitted into a plow truck. And they explained that we don't have any that are tall enough to do so the way we would need it. I had asked if this was the same brand as the other plows we had because I worried about having to get new parts and not being able to swap them easily between trucks. And they were very clear that these are parts that we can get easier. The other ones, we don't necessarily all have the same brand anyway. So it's not like our fire trucks where we run with the same one all the time. And then I worried about the condition or how much extra cost on top of this $80,000 it's going to take to put this plow truck into commission. What are we going to have to do to it? What is going to have to be done? And they said that that would be around $5,000 for the extra items and $10,000 for the labor cost, which I found to be reasonable. So with all of those questions asked, I definitely support this, and I appreciate staff taking the time to ease my mind on all of it. Whenever there's a big purchase coming up, whether or not we have the money set aside in motor pool, I am always very cautious with how we spend our money and making sure that staff is doing it right. And they've proven me right yet again that they are very detailed before they even bring it to us. So I appreciate that. If no other commissioners have any comments, we can bring this to a vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. This brings us to our last new business item of the evening, the e-bike and multi-use path network task force. City Clerk, can you please read the background?
Thank you, Mayor. In recent months, two of the City Commission's advisory boards, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and the Traffic Parking Advisory Committee, have discussed the local increase in e-bike usage. The discussions have touched on the issues and possible impacts on the users and infrastructure of Marquette's multi-use path network. Both boards have offered formal recommendations that the City Commission establish a temporary task force to evaluate these emerging issues and propose potential solutions. The city has seen a notable increase in the use of e-bikes and other alternative transportation modes on the local path network. While this trend supports sustainable transportation and recreation, it has also raised concerns related to speed, safety, and user etiquette within these shared public corridors. Community members have expressed growing unease about conflicts between different types of users, including pedestrians, cyclists, and motorized devices. In response, the city's police department has taken steps to increase education and issue warnings to path users. Despite these efforts, feedback from residents and city staff suggests that additional action is warranted to facilitate a better experience for all users. The proposed task force would, at a minimum, include representatives from both the Parks and Rec Advisory Board and the Traffic Parking Advisory Committee. Its charge would be to gather input from a wide range of stakeholders, including residents, business owners, trail users, and advocacy groups. This outreach should occur in a structured, transparent manner and could include public meetings, surveys, or interviews. Following its work, the task force would present a summary report to the City Commission. This report may include specific policy recommendations or outline a range of regulatory and programmatic options for the Commission's consideration. Staff is recommending that this task force have 7 members, 3 current Parks and Rec Advisory Board members designated by a vote of that board, 3 current Traffic Parking Advisory Committee members designated by a vote of that board, and 1 city commissioner designated by the mayor. Fiscal effect, none by this action. Recommendation, establish a temporary task force charged with evaluating issues related to e-bike usage within the city of Marquette, as well as the varied uses of the city's multi-use path network. The task force should have 7 total members as detailed in the background for this item and should report back to the City Commission no later than December 21st, 2025. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Commissioners, do I have a motion on this item? Commissioner Gottlieb?
Yes, I move that we establish a temporary task force charged with evaluating issues related to the e-bike usage within the city of Marquette, as well as varied uses of the city's multi-use path network. The task force should have 7 total members as detailed in the background for this item and should report back to the City Commission no later than December 21st, 2025.
Do I have a second? Pro Tem Schlegel?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
Very briefly, this is needed. The amount of traffic on the bike path or the multi-use path has seemingly doubled in the last few years, most of it due to EV vehicles. The amount of near misses that I've had has been incredible. This is something we need to do, and we need to do it quickly. I think it's self-evident.
Pro Tem Schlegel?
I echo that 100%. And I realize that mopeds are not included in this this category, but on my way here, riding a moped, 4 kids came by on mopeds towards me one of them somehow doing a wheelie right by McCarty's Cove. I've never seen anybody do a wheelie on a moped before. Impressive. But it's a clear case of we need to really take a hard look at our transportation in general in the community. And I know that our police department is committed to doing it. And I think that this is a great ancillary group to take care of the e-bikes. Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, I think all of us have lots to say about this because it's probably the number one concern that we hear about last summer and again this summer, as we kind of hold our breath hoping that no one gets injured or worse over all of these microtransportation. And I love that we have a lot of variations and options for transportation. And I guess I'm a little concerned that this is only talking about the bike path, because there's mopeds, there's e-bikes that are on the road, there's one wheels, there's all kinds of things. I'm also hoping, and I'm assuming that they will work with our consultant who will be in town with, maybe you want to address that later, for the bicycle issues. The other thing I want to say, so I'm really glad that we're doing this, and I think the community will be really pleased that we're doing this. That probably will be frustrated that we won't get a report until December, but we can work on some of those issues. And I also appreciate what we have done so far, trying to educate and monitor the e-bikes that we have had. The other thing I appreciate is that this is how our advisory groups are supposed to work. They're supposed to discuss issues, they're supposed to study them and make recommendations to the commission, and I appreciate that two groups are joining together to make that recommendation.
Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, so I mean, everyone in this room knows that e-bikes are a huge issue in our community. Right before I came to this meeting, there was people on Facebook talking about kids on e-bikes running them off, and then someone having a worry that they use their e-bike on the bike path, but they're older and they have mobility issues. And I really hope that that is also addressed in this, whether it be finding a way to give a waiver for people with mobility challenges, to be able to use it as long as they're following speed limits and appropriate practices, even if they have a faster e-bike, necessarily a stage 2 or 3. I'd like to see all of these things be addressed, but the amount of children on the road scares me, and I really do wish that that was something we were addressing. I see really young kids on e-bikes that have zero knowledge of road rules, and I have almost hit multiple, and my husband almost did, because they don't stop for stop signs and they just go. So I'd really wish that we could address that in this group as well. And I don't know if there's a way to do that, but I would really like to see that, not just the bike path. I know that that is a big problem, but I think the larger problem is just education in general with children on e-bikes in our area. Commissioner Ottaway?
Yeah, sorry, Mayor. I think that your point is a great one. I think Commissioner Davis's point's a great one too. The road is becoming very dangerous, and I do think that as we appoint a commissioner to this, I think that should be the focus of that commissioner, to really make sure that they bring that part of the discussion to this task force, because it's all encompassing, and I think that whoever is a part of that conversation should really make sure that that's a part of the discussion. So that's my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Yep. City manager looks like she wants to talk.
Oh, I was just going to mention that there will be some staff liaisons that are with those committees, but will be helping and assisting with some of the legal framework and some of the delegated tasks to talk specifically about safety, whether it's with the police department or with our active transportation plan. So this is really truly a coordinated effort. So some of these that are noted will be relayed back.
Awesome. Thank you. Anything else? Commissioner Larson?
Just a question, if we are expanding it beyond the multi-use path, because I think that's all that's said in the motion, do you need to amend that in any way if you are expecting something beyond multi-use path? Or is just loose enough that it's okay,
I think
okay.
that this would be loose enough, and then there's other things that will go along with that active transportation plan to talk about these streets. When we start talking about streets, we're talking a little bit more specific about things like engineering, traffic control patterns, and whatnot. But there will be guidance that will come back probably that would go to the consultant then as well.
So just to clarify, the motion as written is to evaluate issues related to e-bike usage within the city of Marquette, as well as varied uses of the city's multi-use path network. So I think you can squint and kind of talk about whatever you want.
Very good.
Okay. With that, all in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 7-0. I would like to say that I will be designating Commissioner Gottlieb to represent the commission on this task force.
I'm not surprised.
I don't think anyone here is surprised. His background with the biking community and his experience in this, I think, will really help him to help this group address all of the issues that are going to come in front of him. All right, this brings us to our last public comment portion of the evening. As a reminder, you may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please clearly state your name and physical address if you have not done so already at this meeting. Do we have anyone for public comment?
Hello, Barb Outside, 1324 North Front. Thank you for approving that. I do want to assure you guys that the Traffic and Parking Committee has been talking about this for well over a year. And, you know, the multi-use path is only so big. And, you know, having safe transportation all around the city, not just on the multi-use path, is certainly a priority for that committee. And I guess the other thing I wanted to say is that, you know, as you know, e-bike usage is a problem on sidewalks. It's on streets, obviously. And, you know, as we work to make our streets safer, hopefully we'll have less traffic on that multi-use path. But it's definitely, we're concerned about it all over the place, and look forward to working together and maybe a little how-to manual to get this going. But yeah, and like you said, Sally, it's, you know, it's December. You know, we wanted to really start putting stuff, yeah, I mean, I'm not even on the committee at this point, but, you know, the hope is to kind of get things moving quickly, and, you know, anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Okay.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else for public comment?
Hi, Margaret Brom, 404 East Magnetic Street. I didn't hear about the Bike Safety Committee that there was going to be a proviso for a member of the public at large. So, of course, you will get to hear from me relentlessly and repetitively. When I was in high school, if you wanted to be in charge of a boat and you were under 18 years old, the state had a program where you had to go and take classes with a state-certified DNR person to guide you into proper operation of a boat. And you went to these classes and you took a test and you got a certificate. And after that, yes, you could drive the family boat. Otherwise, if you were caught driving the family boat, it was considered a violation. And this was done for a lot of the reasons I just heard, which was a lot of people would let young children do things with boats that they weren't qualified to do. So I would encourage the committee to consider the idea of a endorsement. Basically, if you want to ride a e-bike, you have to take a class. And I'm absolutely sure, knowing that I just took a class from the police department here, that they have the requisite knowledge and intent to provide the basics of, like you say, how to ride in the road safely, what you can and can't do, and things that will absolutely not work. So I would encourage you to head for that as a way of guiding people into the fact that the responsibility is on the person on the bike. It's not on the person diving into the shrubbery to get away from them. It's on the person on the bike. And secondly, I was sitting here and I realized I forgot my number one point for the police in terms of double parking during the 4th of July is, I'm sure someplace in some garage you have signs that say no double parking will be towed. Because I was a person who could wait 45 minutes to get to my vehicle. There were other people who could not. A lot of it had to do with restrooms. A lot of it had to do with getting food, medicine, things like that. I would vastly encourage the city, and I know you've got to keep everybody alive. That's number one. But number two, dig out those no double parking signs, and violators will be towed, and have a tow truck there just as a living embodiment of this means you. because as I said, it kind of ruined the parade for me. It kind of ruined the whole experience because I was ready to leave and I had to wait for some, and it was a very happy family. And so I didn't really want to, I kind of wish that I started carrying around my paintball gun because I would have liked to have paintballed their tires just to let them know that I noticed their vehicle because they decided to double park me in. So that's all I had to say tonight. Thank you.
I'm Dave Stensis. I live on Rock Street. I'll be glad to give the clerk my specific address if you'd like. I wasn't planning to make a comment on this until I heard Ms. Oudzai say that she was disappointed that we can't do something sooner than December. And it made me think, you know, the police have been doing a great job with some of the public announcements that have been made through radio. But, you know, my wife is an educator, works with small kids, and I hear a lot, not a lot, but enough of the really sad stories of bad parenting that come, you know, dealing with a lot of kids. You learn that that's a big part of our problem. But back to what Ms. Oudzai said, one thing that maybe we could try that hasn't been tried to get something out quicker this summer is the water bill mailers. I don't know if I'm just offering it as an option to get something into people's hands. We do that with the planning, zoning information. Public Works does it with their information about brush pickup and stuff. Maybe we could get something out about using bikes in the streets and on the paths. So it's a wicked problem, and you know, I'll probably be working on it a little bit in the coming years, but thank you.
Hello, my name is Eric Papor. I live on Blemhuber. Keep my private address away for moments because of some of the things that are also on the agenda tonight. But I am also on TPAC. I feel like I should point that out. But avid cyclist, safety kind of nuts, and I think it's worth noting, going off what Ms. Hanley said, is that traffic is something we should be thinking of, maybe making more bikes as part of traffic. If we had less cars on the road, maybe we'd have less concerns for bicyclists getting hit. Just a thought, more bikes, less cars, that's all.
Steve Laurie, 1813 Woodland. I guess I would also support Ms. Brum's idea that certification would be a good idea, because I don't think the problem is limited to the city of Marquette, and maybe working with some of the state legislators or state departments to get the certification. I believe it's not required only for boats, but for snowmobiles and ATVs for children underage. And going way back when I was in elementary school, it was a standard part of the elementary school curriculum to teach bicycle safety in the public school system. Perhaps that can be pursued again. So I think it's something that maybe the city doesn't want to tackle alone, but reach out to some of the other public agencies as well to seek some help with it. And it's not all kids that are the problem, but I think we all kind of agree that that's who shows up in the most danger in the roads in particular right now, and needs to be addressed quickly. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Daisy Ray, and I live on Jefferson Street. I would also like to support Margaret's idea with getting the certification. I think it's a great idea. I'm personally a new driver, and hitting a kid on the bike is one of my biggest fears with driving. So have a good one.
Do we have anyone else for public comment today? Okay. Seeing none, public comment is closed. Which brings us to comments from the commission. I'm going to start this evening with Commissioner Gottlieb.
Thank you, Mayor Hanley, for appointing me to the committee, the ad hoc committee. I guess I'm honored and a bit nervous about being on this committee, given the strong feelings. Witness those who want e-bikes completely banned from the bike path and those who want e-bikes on the bike path because it gives them some mobility or a place to be mobile off the road. I guess I'm already getting ready for possible failure by saying I doubt this multi-use pathway network committee will solve everybody's problems, and I bet it won't make everybody happy. I'm sure it's going to make some people upset. But then again, I hope it develops an implementable pathway, pun intended, that other communities can and will emulate. I have some ideas, as you can imagine, and I'm sure I'm looking forward to traffic and parking and Prab's comments. I'm really looking forward to doing this.
Commissioner Larson?
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if anybody's been around town here this last week, but we've just recently saw this increase of these shoreline cultural trail markers that have gone up. From Carp River all the way to Presque Isle, there's 9 of them in total. Story markers telling a bit of the history of our area, but they're very well done. I'm very impressed with them, so I encourage anybody to get out and take a look at them. And then the last piece that I had was directed towards our city manager or maybe our police chief. Is just a reminder of when it gets to a reminder of firework hours that are allowed in town with the upcoming holiday.
Pro Tem Schlegel?
Thank you. On the e-bike topic, I've got a brother who's involved in a bunch of stuff in regards to motorcycle, ATV, things like that. But there is a recent, I'm going to call it a course or something nationally that they put together in this part. It's called Master the Essentials of E-Biking with the E-Bike E-Course E-Bike Training. So there are some things out there right now, and this has been forwarded on to city staff, and I'm sure that they'll reference this type of program here because it's nice to see that it's coming from the national side instead of just a city or a state. So that's something, know that there are some best practices out there to be looked at. I would like to compliment our PRAB group, our Parks and Recreation, Arts and Culture group that did an amazing job with Art Week last week. I got out more this year than I ever did. And thank you, Commissioner Larson, for bringing up the trailhead markings, and they're fabulous. So seek them out, go take a look, see what you can see. And on the topic of Dr. Boyd again, I'd like to thank Mr. Frank Clem, a gentleman that reached out to me after having similar comments on social media to spearhead the celebration of life and the proclamation for Dr. Boyd. So I'd like to thank Frank and everybody else on his team that reached out initially and made this come to fruition. Thank you.
No comments tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep it short and sweet. This year, once again, I was lucky enough to serve on the parade Grand Marshal group, thanks to probably Mayor Hanley, who appointed me to that. Okay, that's good. That's good. But ultimately, just want to encourage everyone to go to the parade. The parade is a fabulous event. You'll be able to see Mayor Hanley there this year, as well as the Marshal, Dr. Robert Kulishek, longtime political science head at NMU, as well as just a huge staple in our community, former mayor, I believe, too. So, take the time, get to the parade, take a bike to the parade. Don't ride a car there. Take a bike. It's a smart move, trust me, as it does get to be quite a bit of traffic. And also enjoy the festivities. It goes by so fast. We all kind of sitting in these seats, I don't think even we take the time to really just take a deep breath and enjoy the time, because we're always worried about what could happen. Enjoy the time. Enjoy the time with your families. Try to do the right thing. Encourage your neighbors to do the right things, and make sure your neighbors are taken care of. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to go back on the e-bikes for a second. Just a not-so-good thing and then a couple of really good things. I talked to a mother recently who purchased a bike for her soon-to-be 16-year-old, and when she purchased it, she had no idea that there are different classes of bikes. And so our city manager is looking at us, we thought we talked to the people who sold the bikes. So I was disappointed in that. And then I talked to a middle schooler and I said, did the police come and talk to you about e-bikes? And she said, yes. And she told me what they told the kids, which I thought was wonderful. So this mother also told me that her son, again, almost 16, was stopped twice by our police officers. And not that he was doing anything wrong. I think they stopped him just for informational purposes. And he came home and told his mom how wonderful the experience was. That they talked to him about future driver's license and safety on the roads and all kinds of things. And she was so grateful that our police stopped her son and that her son appreciated the stop. That's all I have.
That comes to me. I think the only thing that I want to say about e-bikes is I know we've all been down on how they're doing it. I am very supportive of having e-bikes in the city. I think having different forms of transportation for people is wonderful and needed, and we need to be moving forward, not only looking at cars on our streets. We have a very cramped downtown, and if we do open it up and it's more bikes, I do like the idea of that. I just want to make sure that we do it properly and safely for everyone involved. And then with that, I want to say a quick belated happy birthday to Deputy City Manager Sean Hobbins, who is not here today. And a happy birthday to our DDA director, Tara Lassie McKinney. It is her 29th birthday, I think, today. I can't count any higher than that. So other than that, happy 4th. I hope everyone gets out and enjoys it safely in the city of Marquette, following all of the fireworks hours that the chief of police is going to tell us when they are. Go for it if you'd like.
Okay, you can light off the fireworks between, actually it's June 29th, and because it lands on a Friday this year, through Saturday the 5th. It's got to be concluded by 11:45 p.m. You got to be sober and on private property only, not on our city property, please.
How old?
18 plus.
Okay,
Yeah,
very
thank
good. And do it safely so you keep your hands. And then I have nothing else, so this brings us to comments from our city manager.
Thank you. I just wanted to invite everybody to the Senior Center's 60th anniversary party that's going to be held on July 18th. I believe it's going to be at the Commons. More information will be shared. I think that there's an invitation starting to be circled around there, but there was a resolution that was passed by the City Commission tonight facilitating that celebration and honoring Older Adult Americans Month. Which is July, and recognizing the 60th anniversary for our senior center. And our senior center, it goes beyond just the city boundaries, really. They serve 46% of the older adult population in Marquette County, including those in the city of Marquette, Marquette Township, Chalkley Township, and Powell Township. So it's really, really something great, and we have some amazing staff out there that really impacts our community and keeps us active. It keeps everybody active, young and in their senior ages and years. So I also wanted to just kind of highlight something when discussing the dangerous building public hearing tonight. This was one of the first times that this came before the commission, but there have been many instances where we have almost brought something similar to the city commission, but due to the extra efforts from staff to facilitate compliance, it did not get to that point. So I really want to give a lot of kudos to city staff here who work extra hard to make it easy and make it clear for property owners to come into compliance. I know it's not easy, and I think we saw the hundreds of pages of documentation that show those efforts. So great job to staff. Unfortunately, this one had to come before the commission. I did just want to also clarify with the plow truck, the used plow truck. I want to make sure that it is clear that the lead time to receive those plow trucks is 12 to 15 months out. That's shorter than getting a new fire truck, but it's still a significant time from the point of order to the point of receipt. So this used plow truck is going to be a short-term filler. It is not meant to be a permanent fixture in our fleet for plow trucks. However, we will continue to use it and retrofit it into another use, such as a dump truck, after we receive our new plow truck, which should be up for order here very soon. So just wanted to clarify that for any confusion out there. make sure the headlines get that right too. So, and then I did want to just make a point on Margaret's question regarding the steps, because I have reported on that previously. We are partnering with SWP. Thank you so much to SWP, Superior Watershed Partnership, for lending some support there to help us install those new steps with the materials that have been received. So I'm really hoping soon. It's just there's a lot going on around the city, and we've kept SWP pretty busy as well, along with city staff. So with that, I am all set. Happy for...
Yes, absolutely. I did want to say one more thing. I forgot to mention it. You talking about senior things. I don't know how many of you got to the farmers market on Wednesday to see the senior flash mob that they did. If you didn't, it is on the Marquette Senior Citizen or Senior Center's Facebook page. It is fantastic. They did a senior flash mob with a full dance, and it was wonderful. So I fully suggest taking the time to take a peek. And thanks to Mo for making something super fun like that happening. All right, with that, we are adjourned at 7:45 p.m.